Hey guys, welcome back to episode 6 of Ultimates 10. Now, I've been a little bit busy between episodes, and to keep track of what I've been up to, I made a whole list of bookmarks, because there's no way I'd remember to tell everything. So, I shall now embark on a little bit of visual storytelling to recap what's happened between episodes. So our journey begins with me having made an amethyst tip upgrade and putting it on a diamond pickaxe, and that is supposed to give my pickaxe the trait of silky. I then RTP'd around till I found a nice bikes biome, and I hoped that I'd get silk touch. Except the traits are broken. So the next logical order of business was to get the silk touch upgrade for the mining gadget, which I did make. It is a fairly simple craft, not too complex. And I then went and gathered some ice, which I needed to make blue ice and then dry ice, because today I hope to get into some power. And the extractor is here simply because I set up an extractor based farm that creates ice for me. But as I was out there mining, and also for general use, my mining gadget had started losing out on power, so I went ahead and made a player wireless transmitter from power. And this, with a dimensional binding card, basically lets you transmit power using this little guy to your player's inventory directly. So if I have something that is got power, except I don't because they're all recharged. But I can probably demonstrate this by breaking stuff, and it's already recharged. I don't know why I did that. This is rather stupid of me. I gotta refill this back in. Anyways, while I was killing Enderman, I got a gas trophy, which is cool. And then I decided to go down the power route. And the best way to get resources is to get them passively. And so I made a little modification to this farm here, tore up all of the inferior amount because I have more than enough. And I have since planted down all of the power seeds that going up their tiers. So I now have a ready supply of everything up to the nitro crystals. And I haven't made a nitro crystal seed because the nitro crystal seed uses insanium, which makes it a tier 6 seed. And tier 6 seeds need something called cruxes, which means I need to make a nitro crystal crux, place it below its requisite farmland, and only then will this seed grow. So I figured the easier way to get nitro crystals would be to go down this route and automate nether stars, redstone, and blazing crystals. Now I do have blazing crystals right here. In fact, I have 2 of them, and these have slowly been producing a bunch of blazing crystal essence. And I do have redstone seeds too, so I have slowly been accumulating redstone essence as well. But then, how am I supposed to get the nether stars? Because that's part of the recipe this way, and even through the essence, it still is a part of the recipe. And that's where this janktastic little setup comes into play. This is a simulation chamber and loop fabricator, both from the mod Hostile Neural Networks, which adds this deep learner into which you can put data models. And to get a data model for a specific entity or a mob, you right click the mob with the data model. Now, I made a bunch of data models, one of which was the wither model. And so I killed the wither 6 times to make this model. And if you put that model into a simulation chamber with the prediction matrix, it slowly ticks up until it either fails or succeeds. And this time it was a success. Now every time the model succeeds, it makes a prediction. And of course this is available for every single type of mob that you can get from hostile neural networks. And in a loop fabricator, each one of these, for example, a rabbit prediction can be turned into 32 rabbit hide, 32 raw rabbit, or 8 rabbit's foot. And specifically, I'm using the Enderman prediction. So 16 of these, 1 of these, 4 Ender tiers. I also made a wither skeleton prediction, which I specifically used to get wither skeleton skulls to fight enough withers. And lastly, of course, the wither prediction, which crafts from 1 to 1 nether star. And this has been running for a while, and I don't like to keep this running because it sucks back a significant amount of power. That's 2.5k FE that I do not have to spare at the moment. However, just in the little while that it's been running, it's produced nearly half a stack of nether stars. And now that you're all caught up, it brings me to what I wish to do today. Today, I want to make the highest tier of power reactor. Not just one, but in fact, multiple of them. There are 3x3x4 structures, so I've been mocking them out right here, and I wish all of this space to be occupied by these power reactors. And of course, given how notorious Powah is for its recursive and telescopic crafting recipes, I'm gonna use a whole bunch of the stuff I made last episode to set up an autocrafting AE system. And I'm only missing a couple of pieces of the puzzle to get started here. So I'll make myself a couple of crafting tables to make a pattern provider and a molecular assembler. And with all of this, I do believe I should be able to make 4 molecular assemblers. While looking for a spot to put this system down, I dug out this corner here. I don't even think I need that. I'm fairly certain I could just plunk this right about here, and it'll be just fine. So, this is the ME controller. This is the heart of the operations. Every face of this controller can provide 32 channels. That means every face can support 32 individual connections to other things. Now, to connect this controller to other machines, you would use cables, and this basic Fluix glass cable supports a throughput of 8 channels, which means this can be connected to 8 machines down the line, and this would still be device online. But there is a better option out there, and that's in the form of smart cables. Now, these cables actually give you a visual indication of how many channels are connected down the line, and there also exists something called dense cables that support the full 32 channel bandwidth for connections. Except dense cables themselves don't connect to anything, only the regular cables can. So for now, I'm just going to put down the ME drive and then load it up full of storage disks. And the good thing I like about the ME drive is that it actually renders the disks as they fill up from the top down. So if I was to take this one and put it in the bottom corner, it actually reflects that change. Right on the side or on top of this, I can put down my crafting terminal, and lo and behold, I now have storage. And I can put stuff inside it. I have just remembered that I would need a pattern encoding terminal to actually encode the patterns if I wish to autocraft something. So, okay, that is totally not what I meant to do. And now that I have one of these, I'm going to plunk this guy down right here. And I promise I'll come back to this later. But for now, I wish to put down a pattern provider here, which will provide into this energy orb, which I guess can be energized via the rods that I'm putting down here and here. I'm hoping these connect. And now to pipe the stuff back in, I guess I go underneath. Just like so. Now instructions to the system for autocrafting are given in the form of these blank patterns. And with the leftover Cirrus quartz dust, I was able to make 8 of these. All of which go into the pattern encoding terminal. Now the first pattern I would like to make is for energized steel, so I will click on recipe, and I know that this is an energizing recipe, and I will say encode pattern. It automatically swaps tabs to the processing patterns tab, which means that the system is smart enough to know the difference between a crafting pattern, a processing pattern, smithing table, and stone cutting. Now, this guy, I will then put in this pattern provider here. If you press shift, you can tell by the icon changing that this is the pattern that crafts energized steel. And if I now put this in here, I can, with this little plus sign here, middle click and say, hey, make me 10. Now it creates a plan to make 10 of these and then tells me, hey, there's stuff missing. So after giving the system a stack of each of these, I can request this craft once again, say make 10, say next. Now, the next problem is that there are no crafting CPUs available. Now the requirement of crafting CPU and crafting storage happen to be a result of how AE2 handles autocrafting and processing. When a request is made to autocraft something, in our case, if it's energized steel, I would need some iron and some gold. Now, when I request this autocraft to take place, the system takes it out of storage and puts it in temporary holding, and then uses the processing power of a crafting CPU to put these two together and give me energized steel. Now, following the trend of minimal requirements, I'm going to make a 1K crafting unit, which needs a crafting unit and a single 1K ME storage component, which go together to make a 1K crafting storage. And now I can put this anywhere on the system, and I guess I'll put it here. I don't know, that feels too obtrusive. I think I'll put it underneath here. Perfect. And so, again, I try this. Now it says CPU automatic, and it's going to use 49 bytes of storage to make this process. And I have 1K, essentially 1024 bytes of storage. So I said plus 10, I said next, and I said start. And now, the system pushed all 5 gold and all 5 iron directly into the energizing orb. Cleaning up that little oopsie brings me to the fact that the pattern provider has a mode for exactly this, and it's called the blocking mode. So by default, its state is that it ignores the contents of this inventory, except we want it to not push crafting ingredients if the inventory already contains a pattern input. So if the energizing orb already has iron or gold, the pattern provider will stop pushing iron and gold into the energizing orb. So now, if I try to request the energized steel again, I won't be able to. No crafting CPUs are available. But nothing's crafting. That is because this craft that I set up earlier that failed never actually finished. And so to get rid of this hanging craft, I would have to go to the CPU and click cancel. And now finally, after all of that hassle, I believe we should be clear to say start. 2 of these go in, get energized, go back into the pattern provider, and just like that, energized steel is now complete. We just auto-crafted with our AE system. I promise that regular crafting patterns are much easier, and I'm setting them up right now. So to make a regular crafting recipe to be auto-crafted, you surround an ME pattern provider with molecular assemblers, and you hook one of these bad boys up. And when you see them go all RGB on you, you know they're online. So if I move over here and try to get me a autocraft for the machine frame from Powahful, that is if I can spot it from all of this mess, this guy right here, a dielectric casing, encode a pattern, and put her into the pattern provider here, and just as before, come into a terminal and request, I don't know, let's say 2 dielectric casings. And again, if I say next, you just about saw that this pattern provider chose to use this molecular assembler, and now I have 2 dielectric casings in here. Also, to check the crafting status of any autocrafts happening at any given point in time, you can always click this little hammer in the top right and cancel your crafts from over here instead of having to go to your CPUs every time. Now you can imagine that something like this nitro reactor, which has multiple steps in its crafting recipe, would be rather taxing on a single crafting CPU, because a single CPU can only do one thing at a time. So if I were to request something to be energized and something to be crafted, it would have to choose one and then the other to do that. Further, a single pattern provider can only access a single molecular assembly. And that is where having multiple CPUs comes in really handy. Now, the coprocessing units allow you to parallelize your instructions and do both things at the same time. And to set this up, I'll just drag myself a tiny little cable across from here and bring it down. Put down a processing unit here, a processing unit here, and connect both of these up. Now this tiny little achievement down here means that I have reached 8 channels, being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 8 channels on my network. So I'm just going to supply my system with a bunch of the requisite materials to autocraft a bunch of these, and I'll be right back once I have that set up. After getting rid of the old energized steel recipe, because I have essence, I can shift right click the air, just like I did, to clear that card. Let the encoding begin. Energized steel, glazing crystals, niotic crystals, spirited crystals, and nitro crystals. Now already there's a problem. If I request a nitro crystal and click next, the system doesn't know how to make a block of blazing crystal. So I have to then go back and teach it that a block of blazing crystal is made by blazing crystals. And the blue highlight means that whatever I have, whatever ingredient is in the crafting recipe, I have available for autocraft. So one of these would go in here. And now when I request one of these and say next, it should be able to craft up this entire thing. If I say start, this is going to take a while, so I'm going to stop it, but hypothetically it works. And of course, use the hammer to cancel this craft. Basic capacitors, tiny capacitors, the big capacitors. And whoa, we're out of storage in this bad boy. Whatever will I do now? Well, the answer is to just slap more of these, except each pattern provider counts for a channel, and the assemblers do not. So there's a limit to how many I can add, but in the short term, my solution is to put down another pattern provider here, and boop, boop. Reactor starter, reactor basic, hardened, blazing, niotic, spirited, nitro. And of course, I've also got to encode all of those capacitors, but I'm not going to bore you with those. I'll be back. Now that was a chore and a half, but I should now be able to just middle click this and request 36 of these, which would make a single reactor. And I'm missing a bunch of stuff. I can teach it how to autocraft this, but I'll supply the rest. So to craft up something like this, which uses a bucket of lava or a bucket of fluid, as long as the system has a few buckets and the fluid in storage, the system is smart enough to use buckets of that fluid to make the craft happen. So if I just put down this tank of lava, which I stole from my extractor farm, whack on a storage bus and connect it up, I should now be able to request that whole craft. So if I just go ahead and type in 36, I run into my next issue. I do not have a large enough crafting computer to hold on to all of this information. So I guess I'll just craft this in batches. And given that I added the 32 buckets of lava as a storage, it now also shows up in here. If I try to pick out with left click, it gives me a bucket as long as the system has buckets, and if I right click, it puts the bucket back. But now I think I should be able to at least request a basic and click start, and the stuff around me should be going crazy. So out of curiosity, I happened to right click this guy, and it turns out that this cable is now officially overloaded. It hits 8 channels before it reaches down to the end. That means just before this line, I have 8 machines connected to this cable, and I would need a fresh cable to connect all of this up, which I will now have to fix. So here I'm opting to just connect to a fresh face of the controller and drag a fresh cable down. Actually, I'll break this block too and put it up here. And hypothetically, this should now read as device online. Except now that both of these have power, one of these has gone offline. This guy. And that is because these cables have connected to each other, which I do not want. The way to stop that from happening is to put in a quartz fiber between the cables. Now, even though they connect visually, the channels are now separated because this quartz fiber can only transmit power from this cable to this cable and not channels. So, if I right click this controller, it's all fine. Also, that autocraft for 36 reactor basics is done, so I should be able to move up a tier and craft up a reactor hardened. Now, if I want to demonstrate this next thing, I'm going to have to be a little bit fast about it, because I can click here and look at exactly what's going on and get a loading bar for the progress. And it's crafting 4 and it's done. Now my next hurdle in the quest to craft a nitro reactor happens to be these nitro crystals, which take 20 million Fe to craft up and batches of 16. That means I would have to wait 15 minutes at my current charging rate, which I don't feel like waiting for. That means I have to upgrade these rods, and that lets me show off the capacity of this system to autocraft items on demand. If I control click, the items that are highlighted in blue will be automatically requested for crafting. And in a second, I should be able to do one of these and do the same for one of these. Now, all of this effort culminated into me being able to request 36 niotic. I cannot, because this uses more than 1024 bytes, and a single CPU or any CPU of mine can only support 1024. So I believe I would have to split this into halves and request 18 at a time. And once I click start, this should only have me wait a minute. So I guess I'll be back in a couple. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, this took longer than I expected to. And in fact, I've taken a nap, eaten a whole plate of food, and I've now come back to 36 whole nitro reactors, which will be the first steps to powering up the main base. And since these were the pads that I'd built to make these reactors on top of, I'm just gonna put down a center block for each one of these. And the use for this will become apparent in a second. So if you have reactor blocks on your person and you hover over a block, you get this highlight, and if you click it, it automatically pulls the blocks out of your inventory and builds you the reactor. Now, looking at this, I feel like this is a tad bit too low, so I'm going to break this and place it a block above, like so. And just like that, reactor 1 of, I hope, many is in here. So to run a reactor like this, turns out you need a little bit of redstone, coal, uraninite, and dry ice. And I've gone ahead and made seeds for all 4 of these things. And I hope to place farms in this area here and symmetrically on the other side. And these farms are going to be a little bit different. Instead of being 9x9s, like this old chappy here, the new ones are going to be 15x15s based on the Supremium site. Now, in case anyone's curious about how I got the number 40 for a 9x9 farm, 9 times 9 is 81. The single block in the middle is for the pylons, that leaves 80, and a checkerboard pattern fills 50% of the spaces. So, 40. Now a 15x15 farm will have 224 available spaces and 112 spots to plant seeds. So that is a almost tripling in size from these ones to the next ones. And that's going to take a lot of crafting. So in that montage you saw me not only build the 2 plots of farmland, but also upgrade to a nitro tier ender cell and a nitro battery. Now to make that farm, I figured I would use this advanced item collector that I originally made for the little farm, but even though it can be increased to a 15 by 15 by 15 range, I cannot offset this range to be someplace else, which is to say, this item collector has to be in the middle of the entire farm. Now, the item collector from just dire things happens to be a suitable replacement, and thanks to this setup here, I won't have to make ender pearls. Now, my next order of business to make this item collector happens to be to obtain ferric ore, which means I would need to surround one of these goo blocks with the corresponding materials. For ferric ore, it's iron blocks, and then feed the goo to convert the blocks. Now, I guess I don't have sugar. That is a lie, I have sugar. And I should just be able to directly upgrade to the second tier, and I can. Now, having placed it down here, you can see this guy flashing with what you can feed the goo. And to make ferric ore, I wanted blocks of iron, which I did smelt up in a previous clip, or for a previous build. And if I surround this on all but one side, I should be able to take some of this blaze dust and then slap it on here. The texture changes, and now if I turn off my shader pack, you can see the blaze bloom goo slowly turning the iron blocks and covering them, and they'll eventually turn into ferric ore. In fact, I'll time lapse it. And just like that, I have 18 ferric ore to my name, which I can smelt up and get ferric ore ingots. Now this lets me make the item collector, and if I'm not mistaken, this has a not only a radius setting that goes up a whole lot, but also a time for speed, as well as an offset. So looking at this, unfortunately it seems that this thing only supports up to an 11 by 11 by 11 area, which is a 5 by 5 by 5 radius with the block in the middle, or with the target in the middle. And I'm unsure of what my next step should be. Should I have multiple item collectors that are running at high speed to make sure that they grab everything, or should I just downsize my farm? I'll give it a little bit of thought, and I guess I'll be back. After giving it some thought, I would like to declare the winner to be the advanced item collector. And that is down to the fact that instead of having a smaller farm, I can just give up a single block in the middle and connect one of these dimensional chests to this guy. And this is a fairly cheap craft now that I have ender pearls and redstone and iron for free. Again. And if I just have the single block in the middle of the farm be the linked storage, then I'm giving up much less for way more value if I'm to use the advanced item collector. And this has now run its course, and I have a few stacks of ender pearls. Excellent. I've gone ahead and made 3 of these. Now, if I am to place these down, these are super cool because, as you can see, they're currently linked, so they all animate together. But if I say go to the one in the middle and change the frequency to say 2. Now, the middle one is unlinked, so if I put a stack of dirt in this guy, it shows up in this guy, but it doesn't show up in the one with a different frequency ID up until I change this frequency to 1. And now these items are accessible to all chests that are linked with the frequency ID of 1. So I'm now going to say goodbye to this old farm and deconstruct this whole guy. Also steal this hoe because I need it now. And I guess I'll set up the 15 by 15 and I'll be right back. Now I'm just going to start placing down these. And I know it's a 15 by 15, so when I hit 7 blocks placed, which I'm checking by checking the ultimine, I know that that's the point in the middle. Now, I have a decision to make, and that is, do I sink the dimensional chest into the ground, or do I put it on top? And I think I'm going to place it on top here, and then put the item collector over it. Now if I max this out, not only does this go above and below, this also perfectly encapsulates this entire farm. Like so. And it also goes below it. So I can expand both up and down. Something's wrong. Am I crashing? I'm rather unsure. I'm just losing. I mean, I did break the growth accelerators with the same pickaxe. I don't. What? I'm just gonna restart my game. Having changed that setting, I feel like it's a little bit strange watching the menu background being unblurred, but it is what it is. And no, restarting it did not fix my woes. I was trying to see if I can use the building gadget to copy and paste. But maybe it's the fact that it's... Nope. I guess I just can't place these down and not break them. Cool. Wait, I am stupid. They're obviously going into growth. Ah. They were being picked up by the advanced item collector. Good lord, I was afraid for a second. I forgot that these were active. Alright, while prepping up for that montage, I also did craft up these growth accelerators in the requisite amounts. So that should be 122, which if memory serves me right is the correct number. And I'll place these down. I do want to find out if I can use the grid system from building gadgets to place this down easier. And it seems like I can only place on the sides and not on the bottom of blocks. So, or unless I guess I'm looking at the block. That's a little bit strange. I mean, I can always start from the middle and work my way out. I mean, my grid is just ever so slightly offset, but it is doing a quarter of my work for me, and I can't complain. And I wonder if I can... Yep, I can. I just started the grid, the second grid, a little bit offset from the first, and it seems that the building gadget has no problem in pasting down a grid just like so. Oh, and of course, I can just up the range a bit, except this doesn't work like I expected it to. Oh, wait a minute. If I find a multiple that works, for example, 7, I think I should be able to cover more ground that way. Boop. Ah, crap. Thankfully, the undo feature exists. Alright guys, I have a little bit of a confession to make. It's been a while between clips. I sort of threw some tunes on and zoned into playing a little bit of Minecraft. And I just sort of grinded out all of the crafting and building. And now I have 2 essentially fully functional farms for mystical agriculture. I basically built this one on the right and then copied and pasted everything onto the left, but I couldn't copy and paste the cables, so I had to take a screenshot basically from right here, and I just painstakingly reconstructed all of the cables right there. Farm is using a simple clicker from Just Dire Things, and both of them now have their premium sights. Both of them are using the advanced item collectors set at a max range, and this has been moved up a block because I couldn't use the Dire Things clicker to click into the dimensional chest. So it's clicking onto a glowstone block. This glowstone block also makes it so that you can plant seeds in here because it was too dark in the middle of this. The current problem I have with running both of these at the same time is the fact that if I am to power on this guy, that guy's already powered, you can see that I'm actually losing power for my system. So, oh, got sucked into that thing again. But yeah, if I turn on both of these farms at the moment, I do not have the power to run both of them. So yeah, I think next episode is also going to be full of some great progress. I wish to make an auto-crafting system that will go essentially behind me in that little patch of darkness to auto-craft all of those drops from both of these farms into their corresponding resources and be stored in a storage system that I will also build. But if you guys wish to catch all of that and more, you guys are going to have to wait for episode 7. Because that's all I got for episode 6, guys. In the meantime, this has been KSaw in ATM10. Peace out, everybody.